Welcome to Desert Island Trek. Each week, we ask our guests to pick 8 items from Star Trek episodes, movies, and soundtracks to take with them to a desert island. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Desert Island Trek. This week, we have 2 guests joining us. I'm not going to introduce my co-host, Mike, because he gave me attitude when we did the original recording of this. So this week, we are joined by the Duras Sisters, Rhiannon Hurd, who has described herself as nerdy, fun-loving cat mom who's always ready to talk about Spock or Deep Space Nine, which is a good reason I wore my Spock t-shirt today.
Yes.
And also Aisling Gelman, who is, did I say Gelman or Gelman? Which is it?
Gelman.
Gelman, right. Well, we're leaving that in, Mike. There's no escaping that. Who describes herself as an administrator and Star Trek podcaster by day, classical soprano by night, but you're debating thinking about Janeway 24/7. Is that why there's a Janeway action figure on your microphone stand right now?
That's exactly why. Yep.
Wait a second. Classical soprano, I have to ask, is that actually true?
Yes. Yeah, I'm an opera singer.
Oh.
Please tell me you're writing an opera about Janeway.
Honestly, there is already a Star Trek opera, but Janeway is not in it, sadly.
Oh,
Part 2,
my.
Aisling.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's on me.
Ladies, as we're getting into it, how did you both get into Star Trek initially?
Oh, through our family, mainly. Like, we had, growing up, Star Trek sort of on reruns. Our dad we'd stay up a little bit later with him, like folding laundry or just hanging out in the living room, and we would have it on. And I remember the first episode of Star Trek I ever saw was The Changeling with a Nomad, just like zapping everyone and floating around on this very clear string. And I was just enamored by it. I was very fascinated. And Aisling, you want to talk about our mom a little bit and her role?
Yeah, when Star Trek 2009 came out, we were in theaters seeing some other movie. And we saw the trailer. Our mom was like crying because she was so excited, and she saw that we basically had no reaction because we had seen original series, but we were like, oh, whatever. And so she was on a tirade and made us watch all of the original series movies like in a weekend. So we just went crazy.
Yeah.
And then at that point we saw Star Trek 2009, and then we officially decided to watch original series all in order. And then after that, we watched Next Generation, DS9 in order of release, and that took us a long time, but we did it together. So we've
watched all the Trek.
Yeah, we've seen everything. We've been sisters through Trekhood, I think.
Yes,
all our lives. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's only then in the last 14 years then, is it?
yeah, babies. Yeah. No, I mean, actually, 20 years maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
I've done it again. We have reached that point in the podcast where I have aged myself unnecessarily and reminded myself that I'm 41 years old.
Every episode, it happens.
Every episode.
Somehow or
yes.
another, we age ourselves.
And when you, as you kind of watch through it, and I'm kind of glad you started with the original series, like what's your viewpoint on it now? Because considering obviously, look, we've gone 800 episodes into Star Trek now at this point, do you kind of still look at it with the same kind of, say, love that you had when you would have watched it when you were younger? Or do you kind of say, Christ almighty, cardboard sets, Nomad on a blatant string and things like that?
I love it. I've always loved TOS. I think it has a special place in my heart because it was the first thing that we saw, because it was what ignited our love for Star Trek and our sort of like crazy obsession that followed, that led to this podcast and such. I used to have all the titles memorized. Like I knew a lot of like random TOS knowledge. So it's definitely like my core of Star Trek, but I think I've also recognized now its flaws and its sexism and racism and things that like were just happening and prevalent a lot in shows in that era and still in shows today sometimes. So I think that it was interesting to sort of reconcile the two, of like it can be kind of a crappy show sometimes and have terrible episodes, i.e. a lot of season 3, but like it still is just TOS, and I loved sort of also looking at it as a whole and being like, oh, it's still just like cute and like all of these bright colors and the same set piece for like 6 episodes in a row. Like I love it.
You do have to remember though, it is a 60s television.
Exactly.
Every time I watch TOS, it's like I have to remember this is a 60s TV show.
Literally, and it's doing so well for the time. But there's some lines where I'm just like, oh, yep, that's right, that's the time. There it is.
I think it's one of those shows that it's I've also on the original series something that you could actually watch or sorry experience without the visuals. There was a website out there, is it listentoamovie.com, and you actually listen to some of the original series episodes. You actually don't need the visual; you can actually completely work around it. Like if you listen to say Conscience of the King, you can completely get away with that without even seeing kind of what's going on, and it kind of works just as well. So, ladies, in terms of say you're going to be trapped on a desert island, what is the first thing that you would bring with you to the desert island? And Ashlyn, I'll start with you.
The first thing I am bringing is, let's see, am I ranking from like 1 to 8? Is like
Whichever way you want to go. Like there's not ranking at all. Yeah, it's completely
just
your
the
choice.
first thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah, totally your call.
The first thing I am bringing is actually City on the Edge of Forever from the original series. That is my favorite episode, one of my favorite Star Trek episodes ever. And I think it will keep me very entertained just rewatching that over and over.
What was it about the City on the Edge of Forever? Like, obviously, look, it is always in the top like 10 of Star Trek episodes. What specifically is it for you that makes it stand out?
I love time travel. It's one of my favorite plot devices ever, and the Guardian of Forever is such an iconic way of doing time travel. And then the fact that they go back to essentially World War II, which is such an interesting period of history, is very interesting to see like an American perspective. And Edith Keeler is one of the coolest female characters, one of the coolest characters in Star Trek. And I think one of the most memorable fates that she has, Edith Keeler must die is such a memorable line. And I think having to watch Kirk, especially with McCoy once he gets there, and Spock work in this unfamiliar setting it's so much fun for me to watch. And yeah, I love it.
It's great that they're willing to kind of stick with it in the same way, like in the Pale Moonlight, I remember watching it thinking they'll never go down this road. And even back in like 1967, that they're willing to kind of say, as you said, Edith Keeler must die, and we're not willing to kind of deviate from it. Rihanna, how about you? What would the first thing you'd bring to the island be?
Oh man, well I am going to definitely be bringing Amok Time because it is such an iconic episode. Oh man, literally it's what springs to my mind when I think about TOS and like classic episodes. I think Amok Time, I think the fighting and the music and like the little bells that the Vulcans ring. Like it's just so iconic. And it was like the birth of the 50s 60s housewife fan fiction movement, like it truly started the just like the shipping of Kirk and Spock, which I think is so iconic and hilarious and wonderful. So truly, I love watching that episode too, especially because it sort of changes the dynamic of Kirk and Spock's relationship to something where they become even closer after this. Especially Spock's like turning Jim around and being like, Jim, like all excited is just the best moment of the episode, I think.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Like that scene could have been so poorly done with Leonard Nimoy's delivery, but it's brilliant how he expresses the wonder that Kirk is alive and then tries to compose himself again straight away after having that outburst as well.
He broke his volcanism.
Yeah,
exactly.
And as you said, every time I hear the fight music, all I can think of is, was it the Cable Guy with Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick, where they're fighting in the arena and Jim Carrey is basically roaring that music loudly at him. Again, if anyone hasn't seen the Cable Guy, I really apologize because that is my stupid knowledge of 19. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Mike, your question?
So I was just looking at the cat in the background of Rihanna's video. The first I'm going, there is definitely something moving in
that's my cat Upton. He's grooming currently.
Oh, I didn't even
his
see
head
him.
just kept poking above your shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh, look at him. Wait a second, did you call him Upton, is it?
Upton, yes, like Upton St. Clair, yeah.
Who is Upton Sinclair?
He's a writer and a like kind of a politician guy from like the 60s 70s, something like that. Very good writer, that kind of stuff, but also just very regal name. We have a tuxedo cat, so she wanted it to be like, like he's always dressed
fancy boy. Yeah.
Fancy Upton.
Brilliant. Okay, so if you had to pick an era of Star Trek or starship or space station to live in or on, what would it be? Let's go with Ashlyn first.
Okay. I have a classic answer. I believe I am gonna live in the TNG era because I think that there's so much knowledge we have about it, and I also love the TNG era, and I'm gonna be on the Enterprise D, just rolling along.
So you wouldn't want to be on any other ship, just the Enterprise D.
Just the Enterprise D.
It's one of
Yep.
those things, isn't it? Like that you've called a classic and you've aged me again, Ashton. Like that's twice. Like that's outrageous. Like I grew up watching The Next Generation live. What was happening? God, this is awful.
So I have to ask: is it the carpet? Is that what's done it for you?
Yeah, I want my footsteps to be really muffled when I'm going up to Picard, so I can tap him on the shoulder,
Scare him a little.
Yeah.
Spill
He
some
said-
more hot chocolate on him.
He doesn't like kids on the bridge. I don't think he'd like me on the bridge. So.
Actually, that's what. Actually, Mike, that I know this is obviously an interview with the Duras Sisters, but you might be able to answer this. I'm looking at your picture of the Enterprise D bridge in the background, right? And I was watching a video that Doug Director just put up earlier on. Is it the fact that the Enterprise D bridge feels weird in Picard season 3? Is that just because they filmed it like in proper big cameras and actually had proper lighting as opposed to what we were used
It's
to?
an exact one-to-one. Everything is identical to the original set, even down to the carpet. I know when I was speaking to Liz about the carpets, they managed to find the grey carpet that was still in production. It was still easily made. I think they even got it from the same place that they got the original carpet from, but the red carpet was the hardest one to find. And I think it's so close that you would never be able to distinguish the difference, but it's not the exact same carpet. But yes, it's an exact 1-for-1, but obviously being shot in 4K in 16:9, that's why it just looks that. I don't know. I actually think it looks better. I think it looks better
Beautiful,
than what it did
yeah.
in TNG. Plus, I think the other thing as well is everything in it is LED. There are no incandescent bulbs in there, whereas obviously back in the 80s and 90s, everything was incandescent. It had that kind of warmer glow, whereas with this, they could really kind of dial it in.
Dang,
But yeah, so
getting the knowledge.
yes, I am an LCARS nerd after all. So same question then for Rihanna.
Oh man, I think I would live in the Lower Decks era. So actually kind of similar to TNG a little bit later on. But I think Lower Decks is so fun of an era, but also because there's a lot of peace going on. It's a good time for peace in this era. There's not a ton of like wars going on or battles. Yes, there's the Pakled conflicts and other things brewing,
Yeah,
but
but they're pack lids, it's fine.
yeah, like for the most part, the Titan and the Cerritos can take care of it. So I think though I would probably live on DS9 still in this era. I would love to be a little more stationary. I think I'd prefer over living on a ship. I'd like to be close to like a planet that I can visit, and I don't think I would. I'm kind of claustrophobic, so honestly, I think a big spaceship would, or a big space station would help me more if I were living in space. Which
Let's
just
face it,
sucks,
you want the
you
quark
know.
bucks. That's what it is. That's what you want, really. You just want the
Yes,
quark
yeah,
bucks.
of course.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the real motivation here.
Dabo!
Exactly. Yep.
I want
So
to be
hang
the
on
Dabo King. Yeah.
Hang on a second. If you were to pick a ship where you were to say, if I was here, the chances of me being killed are probably astronomical, which one would you say it would be?
The Defiant. Like,
Ashton, where would you pick?
What was the question? If a ship was going to explode?
Well, if you were on a ship and in some shape or form, you probably would die being on that ship or something. Which one would it be?
I mean, I would think like a Romulan warbird or something, but
probably like
As long
either
as
get
you're not on opposite
assassinated
ends, one in a warbird and
Yeah.
one on the Defiant, you should be fine.
yeah. Or
Oh yeah, if we're having
I
a battle. Yeah.
if I was in a ship named Enterprise in a sequel movie, also the odds are not looking good. The A
Too
is
true.
not gonna
Too
survive
true.
this one. Yeah.
True, true.
And then what is the second item that you would bring to the desert island? Let's go with Ashlyn first.
Yes. I am gonna go with the episode Mind Walk from Prodigy. It heavily features Janeway. There's a body swap, and I think it is one of the funniest Star Trek episodes that is ever made. It is my comfort episode. I'll just throw it on when I need to be cheered up because it's so lighthearted and it features Janeway, who I love. Yeah, I love Mind Walk. It would help me out of any desert island blues that I would have being trapped out there.
Yes.
And then Rihanna?
Similarly, I have a go-to comfort episode, which is Data's Day. Ashlyn actually kind of knows it's a warning sign that I'm not feeling well if I'm watching
Yeah.
Data's Day.
I'm like,
She's
oh
How are
no,
you today?
okay.
Watching Data's Day. Ah, shit.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And if I'm watching Disaster right after, oof,
Oh, no.
ooh, better
Oh, no.
watch out because those are my
Is it
two
Disaster? Is
TNG
it? Okay.
comforts.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love Data's Day though because it again kind of similar Ashla to Mind Walk. It's so lighthearted. It's got a really like kind of inspiring theme. You know, a lot of TNG has mystery or intrigue or drama, but I really like when TNG can go light and goofy and fun. Those are sometimes my favorite episodes of Star Trek, are the just like bad shit goofy randomness, which I love with Data's Day because it is also Data's my favorite character on TNG. So like I always love a good Data centric episode, even maybe not all the Soon ones, but I do just love like Data focused. He's just so wonderful. It's a great episode, and I love the tap dancing. That's the best part. Like I could watch that scene forever and be happy.
The humor is kind of so subtle in it as well, isn't it? Just with his, like,
Mhm.
what did he say to Geordie? He calls him a lunkhead at one point, I believe it is.
Lunkhead, yeah.
What's going on here?
Jordy's like, what? He's so like, Data, why would you call me that? It's so good. Oh.
I think there's a, what's it, after they meet the Vulcan / Romulan ambassador, and they're basically, Riker and Data are booted out of the ready room, and Riker says, "Charming woman," and the voiceovers there, something in Commander Riker's tone indicate that he is not serious in his belief that she is charming.
Yes. Oh, you nailed that.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, it's
incredible.
absolutely glorious. Nowadays, I think I know the answers to these questions, but we're going to ask him anyway. If you were to pick a favorite character across all of Star Trek, Rihanna, who would it be?
Well, Spock, obviously. I have a deep connection with Spock. I've always loved him. I think I was like, I kind of had like, when Spock died in Wrath of Khan, I had like a little bit of a mental breakdown as a kid. I was like, I was like crying for hours after, like it was not good. So obviously very happy that the title was Search for Spock. I was like, okay, good, like we're getting him back. Like, I can go on with my life. I actually in front of me have a Spock shrine. Let me see if I can show
Oh,
you.
yes, we have to see this.
Okay, so
Oh, dear Lord.
Spock
yes.
shrine.
Oh,
We've
yes,
got a
I'm
lot
all on
going
for.
here. I did a
Oh,
glass
there's a-
painting of him, and
There's
then
a yesteryear and all up there.
yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a yesteryear one. I drew some of these. I bought some of this art. I have almost all the Spock action figures you can have. So that's of course my answer.
Okay, very quick one. Which Spock is your favorite?
Ooh, I'd say just like an any episode, any random episode of TOS, like probably season 2, Leonard Nimoy is just like mwah, perfection.
Thoughts on the new Spock?
I love Ethan Peck. I don't love what they're doing with all the romantic stuff. I think the writing for him is not great, but I also understand like what they're trying to do and why they're trying to like, mix things up.
Like
It's
it's
a mixed
all
bag.
it's all different, isn't it? Same way that, like, if you're bringing the original Enterprise bridge into like the 21st century, you can't have it looking like it did in the 1960s. Like it's the same
Exactly.
with
Yep.
it's the same with the character. Like you almost have to treat it like it's a totally different character, or totally reimagining of the character. It's the only way,
Agreed.
because I think it's unfair on the actors then as well to kind of say, oh, Ethan
Yeah.
Peck is playing the same character as Leonard Nimoy. You're like, well, he's not really, like, it's better
No.
just to free them up from that as well. Ashton, I can nearly take a wild guess who your favorite character is going to be, but the question is going to be why.
Yes. So Janeway, of course. In the past year, Patrick Stewart, Picard was my favorite character growing up because I just loved TNG, fell in love with it. And in the past year, like I've always loved Voyager from the beginning. I've always loved Janeway, but she has kind of like risen to the top for me. I think just growing up and rewatching Voyager is just like so inspiring to see her. And I love Kate Mulgrew, like probably my favorite Trek actor. So I don't know. She's an icon for me. She's someone who I strive to be. I literally ran a 5K yesterday and I was getting tired and I was like, would Janeway stop right now? No way. She would keep going. So she's
you entered her name. Like, who did you have on your 5K
oh
bib?
yeah. You could put a name on your race bib and I did put Captain Janeway. Rihanna really outed me right there.
I had to. You're literally making an example of how much you love Janeway. Like,
I mean, we just talked about your Spock shrine, so I guess the
Yeah.
bar is set, you know.
But I have to ask, Ashton, do you think that, especially over the years, that the importance of Captain Janeway has been kind of, how would I put it, hasn't been as recognized? Because if you look at, say, a lot of the new Star Wars movies, they talked about how, important it was to have leading female characters, and there seems to be an attempt to kind of disregard the likes of Ripley from Aliens, likes of Captain Janeway and things like that. Do you think that her impact in say science fiction history isn't where it actually should be?
I really agree with that. Yeah. I think if you ask most people to come up with a list of like the most badass like sci-fi female characters, they won't say Janeway until like the bottom half of the list for whatever reason. And I think a large part of that is because some of Voyager's seasons are, I think, remembered as being like kind of iffy and maybe like not as tight as some of the like other series of Trek. Like even Rihanna asked me the other day, I'm such a crazy Voyager fan, crazy Janeway fan. If I had to choose some of the best episodes from a series, it would be from TNG over Voyager. And so I think a lot of the times, and also Tuvix, like everyone hates on her because of Tuvix. And I think she gets like nitpicked because a lot of her decisions were a little wild because she was in the Delta Quadrant, like completely unsupported. So I think Voyager is pushed to the side a lot, especially after Deep Space Nine being so controversial in, when it was first on air. Voyager was an attempt to return to Star Trek. And I don't know how successful it was. I think I think just in general, Voyager is lesser talked about, and Janeway too, but it's wrong. Everyone's wrong.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, just a quick one. Do
Yeah.
you think Janeway would have handled Tuvix differently if they weren't as far away from home? So if
Probably
it happened closer to if they were still in the Delta Quadrant but closer to the Alpha Quadrant, do you think she would have done something differently or done the same?
I think she probably would have consulted other doctors or scientists first. And I think that might be a decision that had to go up the chain of command. But I think ultimately, if it was down to her, she would make the same decision because it's still Tuvok needs to like be with his family, his wife, and his children would not love this.
Also, they're really good friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly right. So I don't think the decision would have changed. I think it maybe would have been even more blown up in the Alpha
Yeah,
Quadrant.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So in terms of characteristics, Rihanna, what's your favorite characteristic of Spock?
Ooh, I think his like ability to be cool under pressure but also still like kind of crack a joke and be a little bit sassy. Like he contains multitudes, and I love that about him.
Ashton, what do you have for Janeway?
Oh, she's bold. She is not afraid to trust her instincts, and she's really confident in herself. She knows what she's about. I love that.
Hell yeah.
In terms of your third choice for the island, Rihanna, what have you got?
Oh man,
I think they're the same.
Oh my god.
Mike, we're supposed to not know what they're picking because this is supposed to be a shock to us as well.
Ooh, surprise! Gasp!
Oh dear! It's almost like I have the answer beforehand. It's all falling apart. We're just going to have to disconnect the chat, never release this episode. But you are totally right, Mike. They both have the exact same answer for number 3 on their list. So we're going to
crazy. Yeah.
I
So
can
Rihanna,
say it in a different order. Yeah.
So Rihanna, what is your third choice?
Oh man, so I had to include a movie in here, and that movie is The Voyage Home. no, probably not a lot of surprise for people who know me, just in general, if you're a Trek fan, Voyage Home is like a classic. Like it's such an easy watch. It's a watch that I can do a lot and have seen a lot. You know, I've seen this movie so many times, have parts of it memorized for sure, but there's also parts that I still like forget a little bit about and I'm like, "Oh my God, of course I forgot that I have to like rush check off to the hospital. Like this part's crazy, you know." And McCoy hears that lady. Like there's just so many little parts of the movie that make it so special and so like I was talking about with Data's Day. I love the goofy Trek. I love when a whole movie leans into that spirit. That is just phenomenal for me, and especially coming after movies that were more serious and talking about a lot of things. It was just nice to have like a message about saving the whales and saving the planet, and like you can laugh and jump in the water after. Like what a beautiful thing. And you know, maybe it'll help me with my desert island blues. Like I'll be you know, watching them in the water and then I can go and jump and laugh.
Ashlyn, how about you?
Yeah, well, this is why we're sisters, because I also, out of all of the Star Trek movies, I also chose Voyage Home to bring on the island for similar reasons. I think the special character moments we get throughout the movie is what makes it so good. And I actually just read the novelization, which cracked me up because there were so many like strange details that were fixated on in the novelization that were not in the movie. Like we get the whole background of the garbage men that run into the ship. Like one of them's a writer. It's too extensive. Like I know too much. But I love that movie. Kind of similar to Rihanna. It's definitely a comfort movie. And I think also like Leonard Nimoy just does such a great job of directing in that movie. Yeah, just and also I went to college in San Francisco. Rihanna and I both lived there for a long time, and I think that also holds a special place in our heart too. You see, like, oh, how did they get from the Institute in Monterey back to the bridge when they're like an hour apart? But whatever, like you don't think about it. So
Wait a second, did you ever find the spot where, when, as you said before, they're picked up in the pickup truck? Did you ever find that spot where Kirk and Spock are?
Yes,
we've walked by there.
Field.
Yeah,
I've done a race there. Yeah, that's a good time.
Yeah, there is actually a book that we got at City Lights because I used to intern there. It's this book publishing house and bookstore in San Francisco that has a book about like movies filmed in San Francisco, and The Voyage Home was in there. So my grandma bought the book for me, and I was like reading through it, and then they tell you all the locations so you can go and visit. And so I was like, you know what, cool. Like now I have all the Voyage Home locations, and of course, you know, a bunch of other great movies. So it's fun, yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely excellent. I always find that whenever I watch The Voyage Home, when they finally get back to the 23rd century and they drop off the whales and that entire scene, I actually find I have a tear in my eye because there's there's so much kind of happiness and love after, especially how, you know, tough Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3 were, and just the culmination of that. You have this wonderful scene that there's no dialogue; it's all about the music, you know. Everyone.
The whales.
Yes,
the whales.
exactly.
The whales are singing. Yeah.
Yes.
I always think about Dr. Gillian Taylor because she's the whale scientist, because like we never hear from her again. So I always think like when new Trek content is coming out, when am I going to hear about the whale?
When are we going to get whale content? Yeah. Lower Decks has to do something soon with that.
I know. Yeah.
There's got to be some crazy weird episode with whales.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So if you had to pick a favorite Star Trek series, what would you pick? And let's go Rihanna first.
Oh man, I am gonna have to go with Deep Space Nine. It has been a long-standing favorite series of mine. Pretty much since I saw it, I was like, "Yep, okay." Like as I'm like sobbing through the finale, I'm like, "Yeah, that was the one."
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one that cries at the finale.
Oh yeah, every time.
So I have to say this because again I'm old, so I have to do this, right? Who remembers Family Ties here? Did anyone watch Family Ties? Did anyone ever hear? Oh, you've never even heard of Family Ties?
I've heard of it, but never watched it.
Never seen.
You've aged yourself again, Sean.
Yeah, very badly. Oh, this is a real bad aging myself. But anyway, it was a show that launched Michael J. Fox in it, right? So it was a comedy. But they used to do a lot of remembering episodes, like think Shades of Grey, and that was basically, there was like at least one or two every season of Family Ties. So whenever when the ending of DS9 was happening and they were kind of doing the whole remembering thing, all I could
Yeah.
think of was that Family Ties thing, and it took me totally out of the episode, and I was there, no.
Why
So
did they do that?
yeah, so I didn't have the same reaction as you. So I kind of wish I did, because I could see the three of you really kind of embrace that same thing. I didn't,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But anyway, that's my random Family Ties story.
Damn. It's wild how we could be influenced. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Rhiannon, in terms of DS9, do you prefer? I always break into two groups: seasons 1 to 3
Sure.
before Worf arrives, and then seasons
Yeah.
4 onwards. Which do you prefer? The first kind of iteration of DS9, or the second with Worf?
I mean, they both have their ups and downs. I think that I prefer Worf, absolutely. I think the show becomes a little bit more of what it's like sort of bored to be low key, and I think that they just were waiting to build up to that. But, I really do appreciate sort of the early days where, their biggest problem is like the Maquis, or like, like the Circle, like some random factions, or Kai Wynn doing so, or I guess Vedic Wynn at the time doing something
Bloody
sus,
Kai Wynn.
Literally.
Space
Ugh.
Karen. Yeah.
Literally the worst. With their little church tower hat. Oh,
It's quite funny. My other half hasn't watched DS9. He's seen me watch bits of it, but he's never watched it through. And every time Kai Wynn comes on, I just go, fucking bitch. And he goes,
Yes.
what is it with your woman? I mean, you will have DS9, and you have... And what was I watching?
Voyager.
No. We are rewatching Voyager, but I was watching DS9. And it was in the Pale Moonlight, actually. And somehow he turned around and called them the Kardashians. I went, no. Kim Kardashian is not a thing yet. And then I ended up showing him that really horrible meme of Kim Kardashian, and he lost it. He just completely and utterly lost it. It was brilliant.
That's so wonderful.
Oh dear. And then Ashlyn, if you had to pick a favorite Star Trek series, what would it be?
Yeah, I have to go with The Next Generation. I've already said it a little bit, but I just think some of the best Trek episodes come from that series, and what Patrick Stewart does with Picard is insane. Like, we do not deserve the acting that we get from the whole crew. I mean, yeah, I think TNG has a tendency sometimes to be a little bit like colder than the other series, but I love it. Like, they're just scientists in space and they get the job done. I love Next Generation. It will always be my favorite series, I think.
I think there's a snippet in season 3 of Picard where Beverly turns around and says, why don't we just keep doing what we've been doing for the last 3 decades? And that is saving the galaxy.
Yep.
Yep, there you go. Nailed it.
Damn straight. Yep.
Got it.
And it's kind of interesting, isn't it? That like the kind of the Next Generation crew are kind of like, how would I put it? It's like that. It's the crew that everyone looks up to now in terms
They
of
are the
all
upper
current...
echelon of
Yeah.
Starfleet crews.
Yeah.
All the new series are kind of like, it's kind of looking to them for kind of in the same way that the Next Gen would look at the original series and things like that. Like, so it's just kind of
So
really
true.
unique.
So just on that one, do you think that at some point Janeway's gone, what would Picard do?
For sure.
Definitely during the Borg, even.
I was
She did her
thinking
little
in
Picard
Scorpion.
impression.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely know that Cisco doesn't do that because we all know how much he loves Picard.
He's like, I will not follow anything he does.
Hell no. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so what is the 4th thing that you would bring to the island? And either one of you can go first. I'm not going to pick.
Oh, I'll go. I'm gonna bring, speaking of TNG, I'm gonna bring Cause and Effect
Ooh.
to the island because I think again, amazing episode of TNG. You have the card scene repeating over and over in the beginning where you start to memorize like how all the lines of dialogue are going to go, and I just think it's great. And then at the end you get to see Frasier too, so like can't go wrong, you know.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's an episode that could have been really badly handled, and it was Jonathan Frakes that directed it as well.
It was, yeah.
Yes.
And to do it so differently and so uniquely each time is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I think you get to see how their brains work when they're trying to solve a problem too. And I just love to see that teamwork and how smart they are and how quickly they catch on that something is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll help with the desert island monotony too. Like you'll be feeling like you're stuck in a time loop as well.
Is this going to play out like cause and effect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Frasier will rescue me from the island. I hope so.
And then Rihanna, what would you pick?
I'm picking the Raven from Voyager. This is my favorite episode of Voyager. I am a huge Seven of Nine fan. Seven of Nine and Tuvok. I'm actually wearing my Tuvok bracelet today, so represent.
Ooh, cool.
So I love the two of them, and this really features heavily, of course, Seven of Nine, and then Tuvok at the end. And I think their dynamic, this is kind of the birth of their friendship and the dynamic of trust that they have between each other and the ability for Seven to be like, no, stay away, I will hurt you. That early on in Voyager, or in her like time on Voyager, is phenomenal. Like, of course, the episode itself has like beautiful metaphors. Like, I could talk about all that, but I just think the character dynamic too is what cinches it for me and what makes me like watch it over and over again, even if it's sad and even if I'm like tearing up thinking about like poor little Annika getting assimilated. Like, I think that it's still such a beautiful episode and solidifies her place on the crew a bit more because they like do so much to rescue her, and they've known her like a couple weeks at this point. You know, it's so fresh. And I'm rewatching Voyager from the start, and so it's been really fun to be able to. I'm on season 4 now, and so I just recently watched The Raven, and I was like, I cannot believe how early on it is and how closely connected they all are by the end of that episode. It's just beautiful, chef's kiss. I love it.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it? At times you kind of forget, like in terms of like Star Trek timeline, like how fast things actually happen.
Yeah.
You could be, you wouldn't be aware of the passage of time at times and things like that. We've discussed the voyage home and things like that, but if you were to pick, you know, it's obviously when you take to the island, and I always consider there's a difference between a movie that you absolutely love, but a movie that you'd watch a lot of times. As I always find that, like, I'd watch Batman Begins more, but I prefer The Dark Knight kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you were
True.
to pick then your favorite Star Trek movie, which one would it be? And I'm going to ask.
I already know we have the same answers.
Yeah.
It's
Oh my God, do we? Oh dear God. Go for it. I'm going to say, Ashton, which one is it and why?
Yeah, Wrath of Khan for me. Because it's I think it's the best Trek movie, especially of the original series, because Shatner, I think, is at his peak in terms of acting. He's in great form in that movie. Nimoy's amazing. Like the cast the cast is great. The script is written so tightly where we have things being foreshadowed at the beginning that are coming back later. Spock's sacrifice is absolutely devastating, which is why I wouldn't want to watch it over and over again on the island, or I'd have to pause, you know, before.
Pause. Just close the computer. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just think it's like such a well-crafted movie, which Trek does not always get. Yeah, there you go. You got the Funko Pops of the sad scene.
Pain.
Just love Wrath of Khan. Yeah.
Rihanna, what are your reasons for picking it?
Oh man, so many. I mean, I think, like Ashlyn said, the production and just the overall like well-roundedness of the movie. I think that it has a good mix of romance, of like thriller, excitement, sadness, drama, you know, like all this stuff. It's got some good character moments. I think that it also represents just so much of what Star Trek is, you know, and so much of like, I love that, of course, it's got a Moby Dick reference. Of course, there's like, you know, some random ancient literature that it's actually hearkening back to. That's so Star Trek. And I also love that it does end up being like the power of friendship saves them. Like how beautiful and how Star Trek. So yeah, I absolutely love that movie. And every time I come out of watching it, I just feel so much like, wow, yep, that's absolutely the best movie. Like, it's so good.
Actually, have you seen it on the big screen, or have you only ever seen it at home? Oh, you have.
Yeah, both of us, different times. I saw it when I was in high school. The local theater was like putting on a midnight release of it because they were doing old like movies that, you know, they were re-releasing in theaters, and it was so beautiful. My dad and I like stayed up and then went at midnight and watched it. Ashlyn, I think you were like out of the country or something,
college or something. Yeah,
I don't know where you were, but it was great. Yeah.
I saw it last year in here in Virginia. They just had a bunch of they had for the anniversary, I believe, was last year of 25 years or something like that. I don't know if my math is right. That doesn't seem right.
40
I'm
years.
I was gonna say it's a
40
lot
years,
more than
45.
25
That's how
years.
old I am.
I'm no, I'm literally I don't my brain. I'm very out of it.
Actually, when I
Yeah.
went to see it for the first time, there was a cinema in Dublin was showing it, and I'd never seen it on the big screen. And I brought a friend of mine along to it, and he's not a Star Trek fan. He appreciates it, but he doesn't really watch it. And I told him to watch Spacey beforehand, but he didn't. So I sent him on the Memory Alpha page. So met him in Dublin, and we were walking down to it, and he turned to me and he said, "You have never shut up talking about this movie for as long as I've met you." And he said, "It better be bloody good." So we sat there anyway. So I had a very different perspective because I was kind of there going, is he enjoying this? Is the
Yeah.
jokes going to land? Is the
Yeah.
importance going to land and all that? So we sat there, the movie goes by, the movie ends, and we're still sitting there during the music at the end of it and things like that. And eventually I just turned to him and I was kind of, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
And he just turned to me and he said, "That was fucking brilliant." And he was there going, "That's everything a summer blockbuster should be." He said,
Yes.
"Brilliant bad
Yes.
guy,
Yep.
total
Yeah.
slow burn the whole way through." He said, "There's so
Yeah.
much going on between all the characters that they're all brilliantly written." And as you were saying, that as you were saying, Ashton, how well Shatner kind of completely just carried it all off. I'm going to ask a really lousy two sets of questions for you here now, both, and I'm curious the answer is going to be. One, what's your favorite line from the movie? Rihanna, I'm going to ask you that first.
Ooh, he taxes me. He taxes me, and I must have him.
Oh my word! Yes,
Ooh, I
was
love that
not
line.
expecting that. Now that's a real good one there.
Okay.
Ooh.
Ashlyn,
Yeah.
what do you got? You've got a hard one to top there now because that's an unexpected one. That's a real unexpected one, but it's a beautiful one.
Really threw me out of left field, Rihanna. I was going for, I love the line. It's such a lame line compared to what Rihanna said, but when it's like Kirk versus Khan and they are seeing each other on the view screen and Kirk is like trying to get the code for Khan to get the shields down and he's like, "We're getting it to you now, Khan." And he's like,
Oh
looks
my
like
God,
a
with the
librarian.
glasses.
I like it's so lame. I always
so
laugh at that
sassy.
line. Yeah, because
Yeah.
he's just like, hold on, I got shit to do,
Getting it
you
to
know?
you now.
Yeah.
Go on,
There's
show what's
that-
yours.
Like there's a bazillion of them, but I think the best one is when they're on Regula in the cave and Kirk is talking to Carol Marcus and Carol is trying to figure out what the hell is going on and Kirk is this brilliant monologue. "There's a man out there I haven't seen in 15 years. He's trying to kill me. You show me a son who'd be happy to help him. Like my son, my life that could have been and wasn't." He says, "How do I feel? Old, worn out." And it's just astonishing. And Nick Meyer said, like,
Yeah.
it's the scene where the hero just admits that he knows nothing. Like, and it's great because
Yeah.
the whole movie, he's barely one step ahead of Khan the whole time. And it kind of
Yeah.
looks like his kind of time has kind of caught up with him. And it's brilliantly delivered by William Shatner. And there's this wonderful sense of silence as he gives it as well. There's no sound effects, there's no nothing going on. It's just him completely just, how the hell do I get myself out of this one? And he always has a way. You don't know he's got a way in this moment, but he's got a way,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. Mike, we've all picked one now, so you've got to pick one here.
You know,
now.
I've got two, and I can never just. They're both as good as each other. I think the first one's probably. What is it? It's Kirk, my old friend. Do you know the old Klingon proverb which tells us revenge is a dish best served cold?
Cold.
It's very cold in
Yes.
space. And then the other one is I mean to avenge myself upon you, Admiral.
Yes.
I deprive your ship of power, and when I swing around, I mean to deprive you of your life. But I wanted you to know first, who had beaten you.
There's a great
Yes.
story.
Amazing.
Both just, they're very calm.
Yeah.
There's a great story that Ashton, the scene that you picked there is that Nicholas Myers said that the whole kind of thing, people often say about the directing Shatner was kind of like keep directing him until he kind of drops the whole bravado and he just acts normal. And when he says to Khan, "Here it comes," he kept kind of doing it in such a way to make it clear that it was a kind of a plant, a fix, and he kept directing him until he delivers it so neutral that you can't actually kind of tell what's going on in the background. Now, here's my next lousy question. And Ashton, what's your favorite scene?
Favorite scene. Honestly, the Spock sacrifice, I think, is because it's so awful. Like you see, especially when Scotty's like, "You'll flood the whole compartment," like that really sets the precedent. You have the cast is gathered here. Heartbreaking scene, amazing acting from Shatner and Nimoy. It's shattering to me, but it's my favorite.
Rihanna?
Ooh, that is such a tough choice. I can't choose that scene as my favorite. It's too sad. Like I just can't with my Spock. But I really appreciated the sort of the circling nebula scene. You know, it's definitely a long one, so it's like
Yeah.
kind of encompassing like a good fourth of the movie. But I feel like particularly when they're getting close to when they're actually inside the nebula, and even though it's, you know, like supposedly, oh, like it's the 80s effects, is it supposed to be not like good or bad or whatever, like it doesn't bother me either way because it's just so beautifully done and it doesn't need a lot. You know, I think that the music does a lot of the work. The effects are just kind of subtle enough that it really does feel like, you know, sort of two sharks circling each other. I just think it's beautifully done. Yeah. Gorgeous.
I have to make an admission here. I'm 41 years old, and it wasn't until I was 39 years old that I finally realized the reason Enterprise drops down, but then you see it come up, and I'm there going, wait a second, it's going down though. Why is it going back up? I realized that they go down so Reliant will go over it, and then it comes back up behind it. I didn't realize that until I got a random epiphany on a walk one day, and I was there, oh my God, it's so obvious. I was there going, how did I not know what that was about?
Most
Mike,
people
what-
have epiphanies of like the meaning of life, and
Yeah.
no,
No.
show was like, this is why Enterprise
This is
drops
why.
and comes back up again.
Mike, your favorite scene from the Wrath of Khan since we're doing this?
It's gotta be the Kirk death scene, the Spock death scene.
Kirk died in the Wrath of Khan. Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
I
Talking
know.
about Into
I knew what I
Darkness.
Yeah.
It's the Spock death scene. I'm sorry, it gets me every time. It's still one of my favorite scenes, for sure.
I'm going to have to pick, strangely enough, near the start when they're about to leave dry dock, when Spock turns to, Jesus, why am I drawing a blank here? Kirstie played Savick. When he turns to Savick and he basically says, you know, like, if you're taking a ship out of space dock, and when he invites her over, and just the way Kirk and McCoy are just completely staring at her in wide-eyed shock, and it's great because Kirk is looking at her from a point of view of, I want that feeling and I miss having that feeling. There's so much going on with so little words, and there's just a bazillion things going on about like life, experience, death, youth, the whole lot. And it's absolutely magnificent, and it's encapsulated with this tiny little scene, and the music is absolutely off the charts how good it actually is. That's our mini discussion on the Wrath of Khan
Yes,
for
I
you all
love
there now.
this. Yes.
Now, so ladies, your fifth choice for the island. Rihanna, I'm going to ask you first.
Okay, well, I had to bring something that I could sing along to, so I'm bringing Subspace Rhapsody from
Yes.
Strange New Worlds. I have a little playlist where I just listen to it when I'm sad. I sing along. I'm like singing on the train under my mask. People probably think I'm crazy. I'm like bopping my head. But I just love it. I really just crack up when I just am like randomly taking a walk and I hear like, Uhura, I really needed to hear that. I'm like, you know what? Me too, La'an, me too. Like, I needed to hear that. So I think that would be just fun to like have on if I'm having
It's
a
a
tough day on the
feel-good
island.
episode.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's goofy and cringe at times, like that's kind of what makes it Trek and makes it fun. So I'd love to have it on in my island.
That's
So wait a
also
second,
kind
which
of,
is... Sorry, go on,
I was
Ashley.
going to say that's kind of a 2-for-1 answer, also, Rihanna, because you have if you're bringing the episode, then the soundtrack
It's
is built
basically the
in.
score. Yeah, the soundtrack. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bit of a cheat of the rules there now. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to
Do you have the rule book?
Rihanna, which is your favorite song from the episode?
Probably Keep Us Connected, just because it's so like, oh, I love it. It's so cute. And yeah, I don't know though. There's so many good ones. I struggle because I go back and forth. I mean, I love How Would That Feel? I love La'an's song too. Like it's gorgeous, but just depends on my mood. As long as it's not the private conversation, I always skip that one.
Yeah,
Anyway.
That's one of the ones that I just instantly skip.
Yeah.
To be fair, I also don't like, and the title has escaped my brain. That's the one with La'an and
Oh yeah.
I just think it's a
And
bit.
Una.
Oh, and
Yeah.
Una? That's
It's a little long.
Sorry, yes, Una. Yes, sorry, I was
Yeah.
brain fart. Yes, I just it's a bit. It works well in the episode, but I think on the soundtrack it's just a bit.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
Agreed.
What's it called? Connect to Your Truth.
Oh
There we go.
no, that's the one with
With Kirk and
with
La'an.
Kirk.
Or Kirk and Una.
Kirk and Una.
Kirk and Una.
Yes, that's the one I was
There's so
talking
many
about. The one with
parents.
Kirk and Una.
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
God,
I-
Yes, ignore
yeah.
when I said like, oh, I didn't mean that.
dorky. Yeah.
Go on, show.
Yeah.
What's your favourite one?
Oh Jesus Christ! I'm not going to be dragged into that conversation. See, it's one of those things that I don't want to pick my favorite one because I like listening to kind of all of them, and
Mhm.
like kind of, one of the things I enjoy doing with an album like that is putting it just on shuffle because I like kind of
Yes.
listening to it kind of out of order. Because if
Totally.
you're because I think if you're listening to it straight through, I often find I lose kind of like something from it. I do with most albums I listen to, so I always try to kind of shuffle the kind of music around and things like that in it.
Mhm.
Ashlyn, what's your favorite song from it?
Oh yeah, I think how does that feel? Or how would it feel? Whatever it is,
Yeah.
La'an's solo. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she just sounds great in the chorus, and it's a message that I also need to figure out too.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
She speaks to us. Yes.
absolutely.
Ashlyn, what's your next choice for the island?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring The Year of Hell. Hopefully, I can bring 2 parts. I'm hoping.
Yes, we
Okay.
will allow that for that one.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite 2-parters from Voyager. It's just an amazing episode. We get to see all the characters in this extremely dire situation, barely surviving. Seeing Voyager, like the extent of how destroyed it is
The
just
rubble
like,
on the bridge.
yeah.
Yeah. What's
Yeah,
left of it. Yeah.
everyone's in like their like working tank tops, which I love to see everyone in their tank tops.
Yes.
Everyone looks amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then also Anorax, the
Mm.
villain in that, he's played by what's
Kurtwood
that guy's
Smith.
name?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the better villains, I think, in Voyager. And yeah, I love that one. It's really fun to watch.
Did you find that in Voyager, especially, and actually I'll ask the both of you this because I know, Rihanna, you're doing your rewatch at the moment. Did you find that the Voyager 2-parters, as opposed to the Next Generation, whose first part was always far better than its second part, Voyager's second part was actually better than its first part?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
tend to agree. Yeah.
I really think the 2-parters are stronger actually in Voyager because they have really
Mhm.
unique storylines. Like
Yeah.
Killing
Workforce.
Game,
Yeah.
crazy,
Game.
crazy
Yeah.
2-parter. Workforce is insane.
I see.
Yeah.
Workforce
You know
is a
what?
great episode, yeah.
Scorpion.
They're great episodes. They're my least favourite episodes, and I don't know why. I don't know. I've
Interesting.
never
Yeah.
liked Workforce.
Hmm.
Never liked them.
That's fair. Yeah.
Do you,
Yeah.
do you think, Ashlyn, that The Year of Hell should have been, as they wanted it to be, the full season of the 4th season of
Ooh.
Voyager rather than just a 2-parter?
I would have loved that. Yeah. I always think it should be a movie like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think a season would have been even better than a movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite scene from it?
Ooh. Oh, well, I'm such a huge Janeway Chakotay shipper that the scene where Chakotay gives Janeway the watch is like
Yeah.
probably my favorite because he's the only one who remembers it's her birthday, and while she's looking at the watch, she's just like, this is so sweet, this is awesome, but I don't have the luxury to think about these like extravagant things. I have to recycle it. I'm rejecting Chakotay. I'm rejecting everything except getting us the hell out of this situation. And I just think it shows like where both characters are at. And Chakotay's just like, oh God, like it's your birthday. I'm trying
He's
to
like,
help
seriously?
you. Yeah. Yeah.
I
just
find
think
with that.
it's such a good scene.
Do you not
Yeah.
find though that for that you just see how low she is
Yes.
Yes.
and how
yes.
beat that she is? That she literally
She can't
looks
even
at it.
look at him.
And she
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
really sort of take any
Mhm.
interest in it, other than the fact that all she's seeing is that this could be a meal or you
Yeah.
know some energy or something else, and she just doesn't really care because she's so
Yeah.
beat.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
painful to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have the heart to recycle the watch, and she keeps it
Oh,
despite
yes.
everything. Yeah.
Mhm. And it like
Mhm.
uses it as a beacon of hope in the second part when Chakotay's gone.
Mhm.
I love that arc for her too. Like
Yep.
he's sort of still anchoring her even when he's not there. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. So what is your favorite episode of Star Trek? And we're talking all 900 or 800 odd episodes. If you had to pick one as your favorite, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, mean question, first of all. Like, how dare? This is just so hard. I was
We
when
never
I-
said it
when
was
we
going to be
were-
easy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're coming on here for a challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I am going to go with City on the Edge of Forever. We have discussed this, you know, with Ashlyn choosing it as one of her desert island items, but I think that City for me is representative of so many types of a Star Trek episode that I like. Similarly, I love time travel, but I also appreciate the character dynamics not only between Kirk and Edith, not that they're like, well, firstly, with Kirk and Edith, I feel like it's not just this like sexual relationship. It's not just her and them kissing all the time and like, doing the weird Shatner thing that they always do with love interests, And this time though, like she gets to be intelligent. She gets to challenge him. She gets to be sort of the leader of the two of them, which is so rare for Kirk. And so he's really challenged intellectually and also sort of challenged in his sort of sexism a little bit. And then Spock is like just kicking ass. Like he is really doing the most like to get them back. And he is working tirelessly with his like, bearskins and knives, basically, as he says. And I really love the the congruent of all of them at the end. I love that McCoy is going absolutely bad shit. Like he's going crazy when he injects himself. He's like, assassins. Like there's some like humor wrapped in it, but then it's just like this beautiful ending. I think it's just so well crafted. This episode, I remember seeing it as a young kid and just being blown away, and there's those times in your life when you're young, when you really get impacted by something for the first time, you're like, whoa, oh, wow, like that really did something to me. And now I'm like changed as a person, and I think that for me, it was one of those experiences that I hadn't had a lot at that age besides, just like, sure, life stuff, school stuff, but like, you're learning more about the outer world and about how people perceived it and how women were perceived and everything. It's just so wonderful. And of course, Edith Keeler too, like such a inspiring character.
And Ashley, I'm guessing you're picking the same episode. Yes, is your favorite episode of Star Trek.
I sure am. I sure am. Yeah.
What's your favorite scene then in the episode?
Probably, I mean, I always choose the tragic ones. At the end, like where Edith Keeler dies, I think I am so drawn to that scene because Kirk wants to save her. And this is what he came back in time to do, was to stop her from changing history, stop McCoy from changing history. And so seeing both of his friends holding him back from trying to save Edith is really impactful. And he turns away. He can't even look at what's happening. And also right before that, that's when Spock and McCoy and Kirk have finally reunited. McCoy comes running down the street and he's like, Jim. And so you have this sense of euphoria of like, wow, they found each other after this whole episode. And then Edith Keeler must die. It's just, I don't know. There aren't that many moments in the original series that take you through those emotions like that. And I always think like City's my go-to answer. It's too hard to really choose a favorite episode, but that one is my tried and true. And if someone recommends like, oh, I've never seen Star Trek, what episode would you recommend? I would say go watch City because it's original series. You don't have to know too much going in. Yes. So yeah, I will advocate always for that episode.
Actually, as you said that, we're going to throw in a new question because, well, we can. We can throw out the rule book out the window, whatever we want. City on the Edge of Forever is one of 3 episodes I will always use as kind of like, this is, if you want to get into Star Trek, this is one of the episodes to watch. If you were, I sounds like you would include this in that list. If you could give me an example of one other episode where you'd say to someone, if you've never seen Star Trek, watch this episode. Rihanna, what would another episode be for you? What would you pick? And you can only pick one. I'm giving Ashlyn time to think about this one now. Rihanna, I've landed this on you very quickly out of nowhere.
Sure, yeah. No worries. I think I'm gonna go with Devil in the Dark, actually. I think this is another great example of Star Trek with its morals, but it's not too heavy-handed. It's telling a story. It's fairly interesting. The only worry is that people might like get bored because it's kind of a talky episode, but there's enough action and enough of the hamburger lovely Horta that I think people would be, sort of, if they're even able to just sort of laugh at the effects, I think it could be a good introduction to the characters as well. It's a good round. It's very rounded for at least our like trio, our TOS trio. We have all 3 of them basically throughout the whole episode, which I think is a good representation of a lot of Star Trek and of that dynamic.
Ashley?
I'm gonna go again, under duress. I need more time to think, but A great answer, Rihanna. I'm actually going to go with Darmok from TNG.
Mm.
I know it doesn't show like it's not a like traditional Star Trek episode, but I think it's a good way of showing someone like this is how the show works. Like Picard is working so hard to figure out what like how to communicate with this guy, and then also you get to see the politics in the background. You get to see Riker like fighting for Picard's
Losing
life.
his mind.
Yeah, losing his mind. So you still get a sense of like, okay, we're in space, but I think it has the ideals of what Star Trek is all about. And I mean, it's kind of a risky suggestion because it could make someone really confused and not want to keep watching Star Trek. But so that's what I'm going to go with is Darmok.
Mike, I'm going to lousily ask you the same question now as well.
Luckily for me, I've been asked this question before, so I have a little hint, but it's actually a two-parter, so I'm going to include both parts, and that is the best of both worlds.
I almost said that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Purely because you get to see, well, you get to see the Borg, and hell, if you're not going to be interested in Star Trek after seeing the Borg for the first time, what is wrong with you? And secondly, it's just both parts are incredible. They are they're both part of my favorite episode from TNG. So yeah, best of both worlds, part 1 and 2. Because I'm going to be cheeky and have both parts in there.
Yeah.
Go on, show. What's yours?
I always pick 3. City on the Edge of Forever is obviously 1. I always pick The Visitor from DS9 because they're going, if you can't be interested in the human interest story, there's something drastically wrong with you. And I always pick, even though it's not my favorite movie, but I think it's probably the most accessible, is Star Trek 09. Because they're going, if you want to see like a big budget action adventure and all that, this is absolutely it. But the funny thing is, I was showing my fiance The City on the Edge of Forever and The Visitor, and I was there going, look, I'm never going to ask you to watch Star Trek, as I'm just going to ask you to watch these. But we were watching City on the Edge of Forever, and she turned to me and she was there going, I don't like that guy. And I was there going, which guy don't you like? She was there going, I don't like that Kirk fella. She said, but I really like that Spock fella. And I was there, what? Yes! Oh my gosh.
She understands.
And all I could think of was the scene in Trials and Tribulations when Dax is talking about Spock. Yeah, and I was there going, that is Lorraine right there. And she was there going, he's so much more intelligent and kind of, measured and is kind of logical. And I was there going, oh my God, this is hilarious.
One thing I love about just on that Trials and Tribulations is where Cisco presumes that Dax is talking about Kirk.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love that so much. I relate hard to Dax in that scene. I'm like, yep.
Okay, so what is the next thing that you are bringing on the island, Ashlyn?
Okay, I am gonna bring the episode Coda from Voyager because, like I mentioned before, I'm a huge Janeway, Chakotay shipper. I always want them to get together. And this is a great episode. It's similar. You can tell I like time loops, apparently, because I keep choosing these episodes with time loops. But I love just getting to see their chemistry in the beginning scene where they're trying to figure out, why are we stuck in the shuttle? Why are we stuck in this loop? And then it kind of it peels away once Janeway realizes that she's the only one who's remembering what's going on. And we get to see her watch her own funeral with the Voyager crew, which is very impactful. And then also she figures out that this figure that she thought was her dad guiding her to the afterlife is actually an alien. And again, it just shows how much she relies on her instincts and how often she is right as well. She's like, one of my favorite lines is, my father never tried to shield me from the world. He always encouraged me to go out and figure it out for myself. So he never shielded me from life. Why would he shield me from death? It's such a cool line. And by the end, she realizes, Tuvok, Chakotay, and the doctor are trying to revive me on the planet. I have to fight in order to get out of this. And she just wills herself back to the living through this. So it's empowering for me. It's got great character moments between her and Chakotay, and also great scene with Harry. Great, surprisingly good speech at the funeral. So love that episode. Underrated.
I love the fact that at the end, when she's basically getting rid of the devil, she basically says, go back to hell, and she calls him a coward.
Yes.
And they're going, only Janeway would have the courage to basically tell the devil, basically call it a coward. And I was there going, that is so fucking cool.
She's the coolest.
Ashton, a question for you then. Why do you think it was the case that we never saw Janeway and Chakotay get together in Voyager?
Oof,
Oh,
the
Lord. I
ultimate
mean-
question.
I know, I've heard Kate Mulgrew talk about this, and she never wanted Janeway to get with anyone on the whole show, because then it would be about the relationship. And I
Yeah.
respect that decision. I really do. If you're going to have the first female captain, she has to be on point, I guess. But it is a shame they didn't allow that duality to happen with her character. I think
Fingers crossed for
mostly
Prodigy is.
it was. Yeah, we'll see.
I think with that,
That's
though,
yeah. Mhm.
it's very. I think that's very poignant to leadership, though.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, a leader should always kind of separate themselves to a point from the people that they are leading. And I think that if they had given Janeway a relationship in that, I think it would have taken away from that, and also sort of taken away her credibility a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's episode 2, season 1, episode 2, where she does the walk around and she talks about, there's that little monologue at the beginning about how the crews are starting to come together, and
Mhm.
should she have a relationship? Shouldn't she have a relationship? Should she get close to the crew, etc., etc.? I think it kind of takes away from that. So yeah, I think that they did the right thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But isn't it the
Totally.
case with so many female characters? It's always kind of almost the definition of their character is romance. And like
Yes.
they're going, it was great that was hugely taken out of the equation with
Mhm.
Janeway, just so it wasn't kind of just the primary focus of so much and the will they won't they kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Especially because Berman and the producers and everyone were so obsessed with like her looks and her hair
Oh.
and all
It
that
took them 3
other
seasons to get a hairstyle they liked. I mean,
Seriously.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Hang on, actually, wait a second, Ashton. What's the Janeway hairstyle for you?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh, good question. I'm gonna say Rihanna also. She always
I
teases
asked,
me
yeah.
because she'll send me a screenshot from Voyager, and I can usually guess the season based off of Janeway's
It's
hair.
It's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
It's actually
Yeah.
very talented. Yeah.
I'm like, looks like season 2. I don't know.
and I'm like, what? Yes. Yeah.
I would say season 6. I think I really like when she has the shorter hair.
Yeah.
Also maybe
Yeah.
5 and 6. I think she has a great era. You can tell I actually cut my hair for Halloween because I was Janeway for Halloween. It's growing out now, but I did give
Mhm.
myself a Janeway bob.
Yes.
I do like season 3's ponytail. I must
love
admit,
the
I
pony,
do
yes.
like that look kind of
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
The bun just didn't work. It kind of no.
Agreed.
No.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah,
the pony
that
or-
shorter hair
yeah.
definitely suits
Mhm.
better.
Agreed.
And then yes, Rihanna, what is the next item that you would bring onto the island?
Oh man, I had to choose Looking for Parmok in All the Wrong Places, which is a wonderful Deep Space Nine episode. Again, you can see a pattern. I'm choosing very goofy, mostly, except the Raven. Very goofy and fun, a lot of action, a lot of banter. I just absolutely adore Worf and Dax. I think they're a wonderful couple, and I love their relationship. So seeing the fruition of it, the start here, the sort of like the flirtations and the Quark element is just hysterical. Like I just love the fact that Quark is kind of the like linchpin of them getting together. What a strange plot, but it works so well. And it's actually something that we were talking about with our mom who loves this episode too. She said this one is probably one that she would like is one of her favorite Deep Space Nine episodes. And I'm like, yeah, how can it not be? It's so funny. It's got all the elements. I just absolutely adore it.
It's
Why
a,
was-
you know, I love it. It's for me, it is that Quark and Grilka
Mm.
kind of relationship, because I mean, I think it's always nice to kind of do a sort of a little bit of a carry on from a previous episode. So obviously coming back from the House of Quark, it
Mhm.
just, I don't know, there's just something about it. And the fact that Worf is kind of completely and utterly flabbergasted that Quark and Krilka were married for a brief period of time, it just gets me every time. I think it's such a cool part to that episode.
Yes, agreed.
I'm going to start with Rihanna on this one because this is again we do love asking the really lousy questions. But if you were to pick a moment from Star Trek that defines it for you, what would it be and why?
Ooh, actually, like this one came to me pretty easily. I feel like Measure of a Man for me is like pinnacle ultimate Star Trek. It's something that I point to a lot. That should have been honestly the episode I chose to show newcomers, because I think it's also a really great episode that you can see sort of out of order, and you can at least understand, if you know Data at all, if you know that he's an android, then boom, you're good to go, basically, and I think that um Measure of a Man brings in the courtroom element of Star Trek that we all love. Ashlyn and I are eventually going to do a courtroom drama series because there's so many to choose
Oh
from,
yes, yeah.
like that kind of thing. And then I feel like it also defines just the morality of Star Trek, the debating of morals, the debating of rights, of like it's never shying away from these discussions. And we also get an incredible Picard speech. And then I think the ultimate moment is when Maddox finally calls Data him, and not it, and is starting to, when you see Maddox's mind starting to get changed, that's when you know that real change is possible. And it's so inspiring to me, like as an activist, to think like, yes, absolutely, that words and discussion and like debate can really change people's minds if we all come at it with an open mind. So I feel like that's just so Star Trek, like solving things through a courtroom drama and through like these evidence. And I think the moments with Riker are so hard to watch, with him having to sort of work against Data and against he's like, I almost won, like I almost, like had you be property of Starfleet. So it's just, and important to think about like why we think of some people as property and some people as not, it just, bringing up so many great things that Star Trek will always discuss, because they don't want to like just talk about the easy stuff always.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I always find that the last scene with Riker and Data is often glossed over, and there's so much to it when Riker basically says, like, I nearly had you kind of, finished off. And the way Data rationalizes it is something that Spock would always do. And Data says, basically, if you didn't do this, I had no chance anyway. And he said, that action injured you, but saved me. And it's that kind of logic that only Star Trek can apply. And it actually hits you straight in the face. And you're going, oh my God, he's actually totally right. And if Riker hadn't tried his absolute best, the judge would have seen right through it as well. And it's an incredibly powerful scene as well. Ashlyn, what have you picked?
Yeah, I have picked Cisco's speech at the end of In the Pale Moonlight, because I think for me, I mean, Deep Space Nine is such an amazing show in so many ways, but I think that is like specific episode we see Cisco is riding the gray of everything. He's
the grayest of the grayest.
Yeah, exactly. He's deep in the war at this point, and he is having to do things that he is not proud of. And I think up to that point, Star Trek has really shied away from showing Starfleet as anything than like perfect. I mean, at the end of TNG, we start to see that a little bit, see the cracks, but knowing that a character that we adore, like Cisco, has to go to these lengths, and everything that happens throughout that episode, and then after the speech is over, he's like, erase the log. I absolutely, like, iconic Star Trek moment. It changed me. I don't know. I was like, wow, Star Trek has got like so many more layers than I thought. And they're willing to take these really heavy swings in this episode. And that is awesome to see.
Do you remember watching that episode for the first time?
I do. Yeah.
And when it was approaching the end, did you say, will they cop out, or are they willing to kind of do basically what actually needs to be done here, which is exactly what the episode showed?
Yeah. I was thinking, I couldn't believe that he erased the log. I couldn't believe what happened. I kind of thought like, oh, it'll all be like resolved some other way, but nope.
The other thing that gets me about that is the fact that the entire thing was sanctioned by Starfleet.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
That's the other thing that always, because I think it's so well done that you don't really get that little nugget of information till quite late on in the episode. So you really feel like, oh, wow, hang on a sec. Cisco's really gone and done one here. He's gone behind Starfleet. He's gone behind everyone else. He's really going down a rabbit hole. And then to find out that the whole thing was sanctioned by Starfleet in the first place is just like, huh? I think that just shows you what the desperation is during war.
Everything can fall under this umbrella of it's for the war.
Yeah.
So it's justified.
Yep.
Yikes.
Exactly.
And Rihanna, what would your seventh choice for the island be?
Oh, take me out to the holosuite. We're go back to Deep Space Nine. I actually have a Niners cosplay that I wear that has like Esri. I do my Esri, my trill spots, and taking it to Trek Long Island. Actually, I'm gonna be Esri and My cat wants in. She likes to jiggle the doorknob and she's like, "Hello, let me in." But yeah, I absolutely love that episode. Big baseball fan too. Like our dad is a huge Cubs fan, and so therefore we are as well. And so just getting to see all the baseball stuff is really fun, especially because it's maybe not it's not an extremely popular sport, you know, out of all the sports. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't think baseball, but because Cisco is so obsessed and everything, I absolutely love that they leaned into that in season 7, especially in a tough time of season 7 where
Yeah.
I personally am missing Jadzia. She's my favorite character in Deep Space Nine. I was pretty sore on Ezri at first. I did not like her because she was replacing Jadzia. Now, of course, I love her, but getting to see her and everyone else just like both having a lot of fun and also trying their best to learn baseball in this like small period of time. O'Brien's hurting his shoulder. Like it is just all really funny to me.
Bloody
And
Vulcans.
yes, exactly. Oh, they're curveballs. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
just absolutely adore the episode. I think it's a great relief, similar to how Bada Bing Bada Bang is in season 7, where you just get a sigh of relief of like a moment of, okay, I'm gonna have a fun Trek episode amidst all this war.
I think what I love about the whole sort of baseball subplot throughout DS9 is the fact it carried on into Lower Decks, and the fact that when we get to see Grand Nagus Rom, all he wants to do is play
Yes.
baseball.
That
Yeah.
was iconic.
I love it.
Yes.
Go on,
Actually,
show. I'm going to throw a
you know what?
spanner in the works now. What is your
What's
Uh,
my what?
what is your moment that defines Star Trek for you?
Oh, for me, oh, jeepers, buff, you've see, I was thinking of the answer, but I was also there going, I think we should actually do a Christmas Day episode where me and you actually answer these questions ourselves. Actually,
God, yeah.
We'll do that. We'll do that for Christmas Day. But
what defines it for me? And I actually wrote a blog post about it for our website. For me, it'll always be the end of Emissary. And I look, if you've listened to the podcast, I'm repeating myself, but it's really important to call the scene out. The scene where Cisco finally understands that he's never moved on from the death of Jennifer on the Saratoga is it's nobody talks about it. You never see it in the list of any of the best scenes in Star Trek ever at all. And like, I hated Emissary when I first watched it because I was there going like, I grew up with Jean-Luc Picard. I was there going, who the hell is this guy and how dare he give him attitude? And it was only years later as I got older and I suddenly understood life a bit more and I watched the episode again and I was there going, oh my God, this actually makes so much fucking sense. And when it's great that like, he's talking to the prophets about, that time is linear and you can't go back, but he keeps bringing them back and he's kind of accusing them, why are you taking me back here? And they say, no, we're not, you're doing this. And it's that realization then that like time has become an anchor for him and like all of us can fall into that trap of not, like when you kind of have something in your life that happens, it can become like an elastic band that's around your waist and even you get far enough away, it's going to snap you straight back. And it's just this brilliant realization of the entire kind of thing. Like, and it's great that it's done without kind of like dialogue. He looks at them, they nod their heads and they go, we actually understand and things like that. And you just give the Cisco that moment again to grieve one last time, knowing he's got to actually turn his back on it. And it's absolutely, it's totally incredible.
Yep.
That is, even though I'm not the guest on the show, I had to answer that
Great
question.
choice.
Hey, you did the same thing to me. I'm returning.
Yeah. Ashton, what's your 7th choice for the island?
Well, Rianne and I just keep doing this. I'm also
Oh my
bringing Take Me Out to the
gosh.
Hollow Suite. Yeah.
Why? Like obviously you're gonna have similar reasons as well, but I'm gonna throw a curveball, pun intended, of course. Is what's your favorite scene in the episode?
Oh, death to the opposition.
Enough said. Like,
Oh, just,
awesome.
I mean, Worf is a character that's really up there for me. I absolutely adore Worf. I also just love Quark's outfits throughout this episode because most people are wearing like their exercise clothes to go to practice. Quark is in his finest attire, crazy not matching outfit. Absolutely love. Yeah, I think just seeing a lot of the Ferengis Worf in this very like Americanized baseball game is hilarious to me. So yeah, love the game, love Rom's victory. yeah, chef's kiss, as Rihanna said.
Mike, I think it's back to you, is it? Or
It's over to you.
Is it?
Yep.
I thought I asked the question of what defines Star Trek. I did ask the question, so it is back to you. You have to ask the last question, which is what's the podcast about?
Oh, yes, that's very true. Sorry. Look, it's 8:30 on a Sunday. Okay, so tell us all about your podcast, and either one of you can answer this.
Sure. Ashlyn, I'll have you talk about our most recent series since you chose it, but I'll just talk about in general. The podcast is literally just us sisters talking about Star Trek, but we choose a theme to do it through. So instead of going maybe just like episode per episode or choosing a series or whatever, we decided no, we're going to choose a like theme and different things we've done, like feminism, time travel, family, mirror. We've covered just a bunch of different ones. We're now on our like 14th I think series, so we're really cruising along, just choosing really whatever. We switch back and forth choosing series, and essentially just trying to cover all the episodes per series of Star Trek to do a podcast series on. So every episode is about, like, we do a TOS family episode and we watch all the episodes that contain family, and then we break it up and talk about, okay, let's talk about Spock and talk about his entire family. Okay, let's talk about Kirk and his brother and his family. And we go through every single character, talk about their family, talk about how we see their family relationships, how they see it, just dig in. We really I like talking about our pods as sort of, it's like a balance between, we are cracking up one minute and getting really serious and talking about like the patriarchy or like the entrenches of capitalism, or like, all this kind of stuff that we could kind of go either way. We could have the silliest moment followed by a very serious talk. So that's our podcast, and Ashlyn chose our most recent series, so if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. We pride ourselves also on covering every single Star Trek series. So we start out with TOS and we go all the way through. So that includes Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, like new Trek that's coming out. We try to include them in our series as well. So right now we're talking about the finale, all the finales. So we talked about Turnabout Intruder for TOS, which is the last episode.
Yep.
Not much of a finale, so that was a fun
it was a
conversation. Yeah. We talked for like a really hilarious episode, talked about the animated series finale, which is a riot. You should just go
Counterclock incident. Yeah.
20 minutes out of your day to watch that. Yeah. So we talked about all good things. We're up next is What We Leave Behind, which we're about ready to cry for. So it's going to be great.
Make sure you got the tissues handy.
Oh,
literally,
yeah,
exactly. It's going to be sad since Discovery has their last season coming out in April, May. We'll be covering that finale as well. So yeah.
It's exciting stuff, and it's just fun to be able. Ashlyn and I have always said we just want to record what we talk about, because we talk about Star Trek for so long anyway. We have these like 4-hour calls sometimes, and we're like, what are we doing? Let's just record this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then what is the last item that you would bring to the desert island?
Ooh. I'm gonna go. I'm
Do it.
I'm gonna bring those old scientists from Strange New Worlds. This is the crossover episode. I absolutely love Lord X, love Strange New Worlds, and to have Boimler and Mariner with their high energy, hanging out with the very like kind of serious crew of Strange New Worlds is just fantastic for me to watch. And it's funny, like it's surprising. There's surprising chemistry between all of the characters. I think it was a really well written episode, and I just love crossovers as well. So it's a great one.
Who doesn't love a crossover?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
What is your favorite scene from that episode then?
Ooh, tough. I think probably when Boimler first wakes up in sickbay and he sees that Captain Pike is right in front of him. He's like, computer and program. And then Pike is watching him.
What do you want?
Yeah, what is going on? He's like, okay, we're all Starfleet here. Like, you can stop doing whatever you're trying to do. I know you're from the future. So seeing Boimler failing to navigate the temporal protocols is pretty entertaining to watch.
I think for me, it's
So
when
good.
he's in Pike's office and just does the Riker maneuver. He just goes Riker, and
That
everyone's like,
was
"What?"
that was improv
And
too
it
by
was
Jack
brilliant.
That's
Quaid.
even
Yeah.
better. It's even better. I love Jack
Oh
Quaid.
dear,
Yeah.
good old Jack Quaid.
Mhm.
And then Rihanna, what's yours?
Okay, mine is Reflections. So also going Lower Decks.
Okay.
I adore Reflections. It's my favorite Lower Decks episode because I am a huge Rutherford fan. He is my favorite Lower Decks character, so I love a Rutherford-centric episode. Reflections also gets kind of serious, which I love for Lower Decks. I'm always
Be
a
a bit
fan
deep,
of
I think.
yeah, deep and serious and talks about like important things from his past and who he used to be and who he is now. And I think the unveiling of the Rutherford story has been done so beautifully, and this episode was such a great contribution to it that like I knew the moment I saw it for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be my favorite episode. Like this one's gonna get watched a lot, so I already have it memorized. I like would totally love to have it on the desert island. See it over and over again. I didn't choose a lot of Lower Decks, even though I rewatch it like a ton because it's so short. Like I didn't want to choose a bunch of 20-minute episodes to bring on the island when I could bring like a long ass like 45 to 50
Two-parter,
minute
yeah.
or a two-parter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or a movie, yeah. So
Do you think that they should, I don't know, not explore Rutherford's past, but maybe see a bit more of his past?
oh yes, please. Like I want to know what his family was doing throughout all this. Do they know that he was like building all these illegal ships? Do they know about his injury? Or is he in contact with other people? Like I want to know if his academy days were fairly isolated, if he had other friends that he kind of hung out with. Like I'm curious about all the Rutherford stuff. And I feel like they are starting to unveil other people's backstories. Like Tendi, we're getting more of her family stuff. And so I'm thinking that they're going to start to slowly give us more of Boimler and Rutherford and maybe more of their backgrounds. Because Boimler, we barely get anything either of his past beyond just Starfleet. So
Yeah, we pretty much know now Mariner's entire backstory now,
yeah,
so it'll be
Yeah,
good
we've
to
got her
see a
covered.
bit more of somebody else's.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, guys, as we're about to send you off to the desert island, we have a couple of questions left for you. Taking our cue from the great Nicholas Meyer, you will be sent off with a copy of the collected works of William Shakespeare as well as Sherlock Holmes. What book each would you take as well?
Okay, well, I am choosing a classic desert island choice, which is The Martian by Andy Weir or Wire. He
Is that for
a
survival tips?
Yes, definitely. I can make potatoes on the island somehow.
Coconut potatoes, interesting.
Yeah, I think it'll be really delicious. It's just sort of funny because like I thought it would be really ironic, and it's actually probably my favorite book. I mean, I go back and forth. It's hard to choose a favorite book, but it's the one that I just like kind of go back to a lot, kind of flip through. I'm always kind of paging through, looking for writing tips. I'm a writer, I'm a poet, and so I love incorporating like scientific stuff into my poems, and the way that Andy Weir is able to masterfully incorporate art and science, through this writing. He consulted so many scientists to get the science right for The Martian, and that kind of dedication to science fiction writing is what I put into my like sci-fi poems and such. And so just the idea of like that craft, it took him so long to write this fairly small book, and I just adore that about it. So even though it's a small book, I would just read it a lot and feel as isolated as Mark Watney does. So
Ashlyn, what would you take with you?
Oh, I'm taking Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. By comparison, that is a massive book. It's like
Yes.
over 1,000 pages. So I knew it would keep me busy for a while. I could read it multiple times and it would only be like a year or so. It's basically it's set in Britain in the 1800s, as close as possible to historical accuracy, except that there is magic in London. And these two sorcerers have a crazy time. So I'm a big fantasy person, and it's intriguing to see how magic is used in a world of like war and everything. So I love that book.
And what luxury item would you each take?
I'm taking a fleece blanket. Keep me warm.
So just a quick, it is a desert island near the
At
equator.
night, it gets cold. I don't
Okay.
know. I feel like I'm gonna be chilly.
I just imagine you sitting on a desert island under a fleece blanket in 45-degree heat.
That sounds right, though. I get cold pretty easily. I'm not surprised.
You could use it to shield yourself from getting sunburned, maybe. I
True,
don't
but it's
know.
fleece.
Yeah.
I would be really sweaty.
Ashton, what would you take?
I'm taking a deck of cards, playing a lot of solitaire out there.
That's a luxury item. Wow.
Look, in fairness, I'm not going to knock solitaire. I think that's actually a great idea to have with you in that kind of situation. And how would you each handle the isolation? If you were left on your own for that long, would you be good? Would you be bad? Would you be gone insane within 2 minutes? Or how would you handle it?
I would crumble within days. It would not be good. I would be unwell. Even though I am an introvert, I very much like being around people. I like being introverted in the space of like being around people quietly. Like we're all just like doing our own thing, but like I need to be around people. I would lose my mind. Yeah, it would be bad.
Ashton, how about you?
I think it would be definitely like a steep adjustment to get used to, be really tough in the beginning, but after a month or so, I think I actually would enjoy it for a little bit. Like there's that sweet spot of I'm enjoying my island time, and then I would probably go crazy if I was there for more than a year. I was just absolutely cast away. I'd have a little friend out of my coconut I would bring everywhere with me. But I would like it for a small part, I think.
Yeah.
And how resourceful are you both? Would you be able to like make a fire, or would you basically frozen to death within like 2 minutes?
Well, I wouldn't freeze to death because I have my fleece blanket, so that's the first thing. But otherwise, I'm not resourceful. I think starting a fire would be questionable at best. I would gather small sticks and hope for like be rubbing them together for hours. I think it would be a struggle to survive each day, to fend for myself. Even the thought of killing the animals to eat them sounds like, I'm a vegetarian. That sounds atrocious. Like I think I would be like sobbing as I'm trying to like kill this buddy. It would just be a hot mess. Like truly, me and like just the natural desert and that just in general do not mix. So
what was the line in Basics part? Was it 1 or 2 when Chakotay is trying to make a fire and he's basically there going, you found the only native person who can't actually make a fire.
The only Native American who can't start a fire.
Yeah. And they use everyone's hair. I was like, oh
That's
my God.
Yeah. Ashton, how resourceful are you in these situations?
I would think I'm fairly resourceful. I can definitely start a fire. I think I would just, kill the animal and grin and bear it. I haven't killed any animals before, but I'm not able to identify plants, and so I feel like I might accidentally like eat a toxic plant. But if I survived all of that, I think I could last a couple months for sure and be okay. Questionable. I have my Star Trek, so that's what matters.
Yeah, either way, you're good on that.
That's the downside is you can't eat the Star Trek. But
it's true. Yeah. Very true.
Perhaps we should. But I think perhaps we should add a question of what item from the Star Trek universe would you bring with you?
Oh yeah, well, you can't take a replicator or a transporter. No.
I think a replicator is okay, but only
no, it's not.
It's programmed to only allow the super basics.
Water and pasta or something.
Nutritional supplement 2A, I think has a nice ring to it.
Not even pasta. Yeah.
Just brown gloop.
Nutrigoop,
yeah.
Ooh. Yes. Or Sluggo Cola. There you go.
Yeah.
Mike, the last question I will leave to you.
Okay. It's a really easy question. Doesn't take any thinking whatsoever, but I will start with Ashlyn. What does Star Trek mean to you?
Yes, a great question. Well, Star Trek has taught me what found family really means, that science is sexy, it's okay to be gay, and there might still be hope for our species after all.
Awesome. And Rihanna, what does Star Trek mean to you?
Star Trek is definitely my anchor, and it helps me navigate my own tough life situations and teaches me like how to manage social or like interpersonal relationships and situations that would otherwise be like difficult to deal with.
Awesome.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So Mike, I'll let you do the outro.
I'm doing the outro this time.
Nice.
Okay.
You always do the outro. I never do the outro. It's your baby to do the outro.
I'm just gonna see if you want to mix it up this week.
No.
Okay, fine. Thank you everybody for tuning into this week's episode of Desert Island Trek with my wonderful co-host, the lovely Joseph Hurley, and our incredible guests this week, the Duras Sisters Podcast, Rihanna and Ashlyn. If you'd like to catch up more Clone Star Pod, make sure you check out our website, clonestarpod.com, for amazing merch, fan art, and blogs written by you, our friends. Until next time, live long and prosper.